Austin, how you feeling, my man?
Oh man, how are you? I'm good. I'm good. Yes, sir.
This so obviously just a reminder, we messed up and we misunderstood the concept of when Thor: Love and Thunder comes out. So initially we had planned ahead for Taika Waititi. So we are backs against the wall for a minute. We're like, what can we do that'll be easy but also fun and summer? And we decided to go to two comedy franchises, and we combined the Back to the Future trilogy as well with the new Bill and Ted trilogy. So,
Yeah.
generally speaking, what are your thoughts on these movies as a whole, and do you consider them comparable and worth the?
I think they're somewhat comparable because when we paired them together initially, just on our master list, time traveling duos because you've got Doc and Marty and Bill and Ted, and they each have sort of an iconic time vehicle per se, or a time traveling device, that's pretty iconic even to the casual movie fan. Yeah, like I said, with this new one, they now both have a trilogy, and they all have entries that definitely feel different from one another. I think that's safe to say that they all have sort of some different things going on,
Yeah,
and
it doesn't feel stale. Doesn't
yeah,
feel
yeah, no, each one
repetitive.
feels unique in what they do and some of the concepts they do. I'm positive on all of these, just straight up. Like before we even get to the rankings, I like all these movies. So it's just literally ranking them on. Like I talk about a lot, just ones that mean a little bit more to me or connect a little bit more, things like that. But I like all these movies; they're a lot of fun, and yeah, I mean, I didn't get a chance to really see any of these other than the most recent Bill and Ted in theaters because they were all, even before my time. I was only. Even when the last one of each of these franchises came out, I was like 5 years old. So, didn't get to see any of them in theaters. But I have seen Back to the Future in theaters. So a couple of times on repertory screenings. But yeah, grew up with the trilogy, the Back to the Future ones on VHS, and watched the hell out of them all the time. And yeah, and then became a fan of Bill and Ted as I would see it a lot on cable. So totally.
Yeah. So for me personally, I grew up with the first. Well, I guess technically all three Back to the Futures, but the first one is the one that
Mhm.
I remember the most. Well, technically, ironically, the first and the third. I don't know why I had seen the third one a couple times as a kid because I never grew up like into westerns, so it's kind of just a random thing where I don't know if it was on TV or it's what we had. I honestly don't remember. But so the Back to the Future trilogy, I've always had a fond memory of, and it's one of those ones where it's the go-to picks, like for your show at tournament fights, the
Mhm.
original Back to the Future is on there a lot. It gets voted for a lot, but for a reason. I mean, it's one of
Yeah.
those good movies where it's like that's not a bad thing. But I've always been like, oh, do I consider myself like a true fan of that? Blah 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 blah. So I've talked myself out of it for years. So as I've gone back and I've really just start coming into my own of like my taste and my personal
Mhm.
favorites and not like worrying about like you know influences on the outside. Back to Future, the first one has always been one that I'm like, okay, yeah, I like this, and then the other two, I'm like, all right, now let's go in fresh and see how I feel about those non-nostalgic, and it's been interesting. And then the first Bill and Ted I watched for the first time 2 years ago, and without spoilers of my thoughts on it, the first time I watched it, I was like, I had no idea going in like what to expect. I just
Mhm.
knew that type of like vibe. So going in, I was nervous, and when I watched it, all I could say with I was like, that held up. Like I don't know in terms of like how I would have felt growing up, but in terms of like watching it in today's eyes, just from my opinion, I was like that holds up. So going into this, I only had to watch the second one and the third one for a first time. I did rewatch the first Bill and Ted just to like kind of verify, maybe
Sure.
maybe it was more of low expectations thing. So it's one of those where it's like, all right, cool. So yeah, this was definitely a great combination of trilogies to think about and compare. And I'm pretty confident in my list, and similar to you, I'm positive on all six. In terms of like the levels of it, we'll get into that. But yeah,
Yeah.
I am positive on all six, and I don't think like none of these are a bad time at the movies.
No, no, no. They're all fun. I think they're all entertaining. Like we said, they all bring something new to the table. Even with with Robert Zemeckis doing all of the, the original ones and then filming two and three at the same time, things like that, and them coming out a year apart. They all still feel different, but they all feel like a trilogy as well. Even the third Bill and Ted movie does not ignore Bogus Journey. It rolls with some of the stuff from there. There's callbacks to both those movies. It feels like a nice wraparound. And yeah, we'll talk about it. But I think they both work as a great trilogy, and I really hope they don't do a fourth one for either one. I think I'm good now. With
Yeah.
both these franchises, staying where they are.
All right, so I guess without further ado, we can go ahead and get started. My number six, once again, positive on all of them, but my
Hmm.
number six is the one where I'm less likely to watch it again, like prioritize it. You know, it's if I watch it again, it's because of like a show like this, trivia or whatever. Like it won't be pulling teeth to rewatch it, but I'm probably not going to go out of my way to rewatch this one, and that's Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Number six too.
Yeah.
No arguments there. So
So
and again, I'm positive on it as well.
yeah.
So it's still an entertaining, fun movie. But yeah, go ahead because you watched it first. I saw this one in the theater even during the pandemic. Went down to Greenville and watched it at a mom and pop theater that was still open up, and went and saw it. But yeah, so I saw that, and this is one I rewatched this afternoon actually, just before we went live.
So my thoughts on this one is my biggest takeaway is Keanu Reeves doesn't do Ted like he does in the first two.
Mhm.
He's still a good actor, and like the character is still written well, but he doesn't give off that persona of the original Ted. You know what I mean? So trying to hear him try to do it with this grisly voice that he is now, like all you hear is John Wick. It's weird. So obviously taking that out of it, like the script. I mean, the script is bonkers. Like let's not act like it's going to be like super, awesome script, but like you go in knowing that, you know what I mean? You go in for the experience, the references, the characters, the time pieces, and then just the antics that they're going to go on. So all that was fine with me. Had no issue there. The effects were fine. Like it's one of those ones where we're just doing all those things where it's like in 2020 standards, should it have technically been better? Maybe, but could it have also been way worse? Yeah. So like it's one of those ones where it's like no one's gonna act like they're groundbreaking, effects, but also they're not, dog water ones either. You know what I mean? Watching the dynamic, you felt when you open, I felt like they were growing into their characters, which maybe was kind of the point, where it's like they were kind of getting back, shaking off the dust. But like that opening scene at the wedding, and then the awkwardness of it, and them going into the couples therapy, and then meeting their future selves, from different variations, their daughter dynamic, all that stuff. I feel like it did a good job of just setting up the world and like you said, feeling like a part of the trilogy. So it was a fun time. I'm a real big Samara Weaving fan right now, so like just seeing her was awesome. You know what I mean? I love Ready or Not. I love Three Billboards. I just watched The Babysitter for the first time, a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And she's the titular babysitter. And then in this, it's one of those where I'm like, oh wow, I didn't realize she was the daughter.
And she's been known lately as God, what's her name? From Wolf of Wall Street, or as not Margot Robbie, essentially. Because a lot of people, when they saw the trailer for Ready or Not, they were like, oh, I didn't know Margot Robbie was in this movie. It's like, oh no, it's Samara Weaving.
Yeah, exactly.
They kind of look.
So it was just fun seeing that, and then just the goofy antics, and then you get Death back. That was interesting, and then the whole subplot of the leaders and the beyond and all that stuff. It's interesting. So it's like I said, I really don't have a desire to go out of my way to rewatch this. I guess the easiest comparison is the Jay and Silent Bob reboot, where it's like I do go out of my way for that one because I still have fun with that one, but I can't imagine me going out of my way to watch this, but like not in a negative way, just like after one, like all right, that's cool. Like the magic of the first two is different than what are your thoughts?
No, totally. I'm in the same boat. When I saw it in the theater, I enjoyed it for what it was. I had a good time. It was a tight 90 minutes, which is exactly what it needed to be. It didn't kind of overstay its welcome.
All three of them.
Yeah, definitely. They're very, very quick. They're very efficient. And this one's no different. I think, you talked about Keanu Reeves not quite doing the Ted anymore, but I think that's because Ted's daughter, Bridget, played by Bridget Payne, like I think she encompasses that character like tremendously. I think the daughters kind of steal the movie in this one, and I really enjoy all the scenes that they're in, and the dynamic they bring. They actually love their dads. Like they could have gone the route where it's like, oh, our dads are like these pathetic old rockers, and like we don't like them, and after that, but like no, they generally like love their dads, like they're supporters of them. They love music, they love all this stuff, and they want to like help them out. Like I like that dynamic, they kind of take lead and really care about everything going on. So like I love all their scenes. I think they kind of make the movie at least stand out as far as being really good. But I would say at least Keanu and Alex Winter's chemistry is still good. Alex Winter still kills it as Bill. He slides like right back into that role, and it's always good to see. We'll talk about him later with the other movie, but Bill Sadler's death is just so much fun. Like he just he gets to have a little fun and be a little goofy, but he he jumps right back into this one, no problem. And I love all of his stuff about, the 40-minute bass lines and things like that. Just all of his things and the fallout of that. I think they convey all that without having to, jump too much into it. But I really like the storyline as well with the countdown, because if you actually look, the movie, when they say they got 77 minutes to save the world, it's actually 77 minutes left in the movie, and they play it in real time, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I'm glad they were able to do something. I love movies that kind of work like that. So entertaining movie. I'm not going to go back to it a whole lot, especially as much as the first two, but I don't really have a ton of problems with it. I think it's fine, and it's entertaining. It's not bad.
It's the perfect definition of serviceable, especially when you're in a franchise where it's just it's like I can't think of a good example, but imagine your mid-tier MCU. If this franchise was larger, this would be at the mid-tier. It's no complaints.
Sure.
It's not going to be higher. It's not going to be lower. It's a good entry. So that's that. My number 5. This one is close between my 5 and 4. I feel like I could go either way depending on just my mood, but I'm just going to let the longevity be the tiebreaker. So my number 5 is going to be Bogus Journey.
Same here.
Okay.
No, we're on track so far. Yeah. And again, I like this movie a lot. I think it's a fun sequel.
Yeah. For me, I started off with a 3-star just because I just want to let the longevity hold up. But I could see this if I go back and I rewatch it, I add it to the queue, it's to be a solid 4 and no complaints. You know what I mean? It's borderline. I feel I just need to have that desire to go back and watch it. You know what I mean? Just with the first one, because it's an acquired taste that you're either all in immediately or you're going to just kind of feel cultish and want to go back to the goofiness. You know what I mean? This one just does a lot more extra. You know what I mean? There's just more going on. I loved the robots. I loved everything, with, like you said, the introduction of Death. I love just the Bill and Ted dynamic of just, the goofy things of just the air guitar and you're just ready for that. And then I love when Death, I mean, not Death, but when the robots are, messing with them and they're kind of going back and forth and they're just so kind of dense and they're yeah, this is cool. And they're oh, wait, yo, dude, you know what I mean? And all that stuff. And honestly, I'd love watching it in today's eyes and just getting that vibe of see, movies could just kind of say what they want back in the day. It's it is what it is. It's not harsh. It's not meant to be. It's just, kind of just the times, and you just move on and you just have a good time of just shit happens. You know what I mean? So it's one of those where it's watching, it's kind of refreshing. I say that same thing with movies in today's era too. If they have certain lines and words of things where it's that's sometimes that's just how people talk. It is what it is. It's not, it just is what it is. So it just, like I said, it's one of those characters for Keanu Reeves. Now, it's ironic that, being so late to the Bill and Ted party of just accepting of his character, just knowing him as, Neo and John Wick and, from Speed, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. When I go back and watch this, I'm and Point Break, and I'm yeah, I'm cool. I'm cool with it. You know what I mean? So it's interesting to say that he's got range, but he does in this, you know what I mean? And I just love that, they're not really great at music, but it's kind of the whole thing of that's the driving force of this. So good first time watch, and I'm happy that I finally knocked it off my list. What are your thoughts?
There is that camp out there that they have a staunch cult following as far as people that love Bogus Journey more than the original. I'm not quite in that camp yet, but I also really like this movie, and I've always advocated that this is a fun sequel. They don't do the same time travel stuff again. They're able to play around with some of those sort of sci-fi or paranormal concepts, in this one. But all the hell stuff is really fun. With Bill Sadler, he's great. When they just cut to them playing board games, it's just so surreal. It's just I challenge you to a thing, and they're just playing Battleship. It's so much fun.
Best out of 3. 5 out of 7.
Best 4 out of 7. Best, 5 out of 9. He just keeps going on. They're playing Twister. They're playing, all the different stuff. It's just a lot of fun. And I will absolutely say I do have vivid memories from when I saw this on cable and not knowing what the movie was, of some of the imagery during the hell sequences giving me nightmares for sure. The bunny specifically was one that gave me nightmares when the bunny's hopping towards the camera. That was really creepy for whatever reason. I know it's hard to convey to grown men, seeing it for the first time, it's not a big deal. But if you're seeing it for you're 7 years old and you just out of nowhere, and the Alex Winter playing the grandma, which trying to kiss him and stuff, it was really creepy just the way it's lit and everything. There's some creepy stuff in there, and I just like the look visually of the hallways and things. All the production design is really cool, and all the stuff outside of that, like you said about the range of these guys also playing the evil robots, and I just think even the evil robot sequences are so much fun.
So much
Like
fun.
when they're just bumming around in the rooms, they're eating snacks and just being stupid. Like they're just having a blast. You can tell, and it makes for a fun dynamic in the movie. You know, the station stuff is not great, but like at the same time, it's it is what it is. You know, I can get past that and it's fine. But yeah, even like when they go up to heaven and they're just like, hey, here's our friend Death, you know, he's a cool dude. What's the meaning of life? All we are is dust in the wind, dude. You know, like
It's one of those things that why people can accept the Bill and Ted, as long as you can get over the goofiness, because some people are just so anti-goofy that
Yeah.
they might not get over that. But if you can get over that and you can just accept them from a writing perspective, they're just genuine dudes who are just literally just trying to. So imagine Forrest Gump if he was more hippie. You know, he's just kind of going through life. You know what I mean? He may not always have the answers, but he's gonna have his answers, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You kind of just accept life, and you just mean the best that you can get out of it. You know what I mean? And like I said, they're dynamic. They have each other's backs. You know what I mean? And they're good dudes. You know what I mean? And you feel good when you watch it, whether you're laughing or you're just kind of like just hanging out and vibing. It's just a vibe, dude. And that's why.
Yeah, I could watch these guys just hang out in their garage, like trying to play the guitar and failing miserably, trying to make videos. Just being like, well, we need Eddie Van Halen to make a great video, but we can't get Eddie Van Halen until we make a great video. You know, like doing the little circular logic, like
sounds like me doing YouTube. I need a guest that'll give me that clout. But
I gotta have the show to get the
here,
guest. Yeah, right. It's that circular thing of back and forth. Trust me, it's the struggle of life. But I think this is a fun movie. Again, it breezes by. All these movies are like 90 minutes. They're just such a quick watch. They're over before you know it. They jump into it. It's a lot of fun. We'll talk about George Carlin because I think he's better in the original one, obviously, than Denise. I mean, he's in this one a little bit, but he has more of an impact in the first one.
I did like a quick homage they did in the third one of just having
we mentioned that the little museum hologram thing, like that was fun. Yeah, I mean, because they had to pay tribute to him in some respects, and that was probably the best way
and
to
then
do
they
it.
just made that one character just his daughter. So
so it's cool. And then with her being like, my father believed in you, I believe in you guys, that sort of thing. Like it's a nice dynamic. So it's a good way to not touch on it, you know what I mean, but like just have a nice little tribute to him. So
exactly.
Totally. No,
it's definitely a fun time. But so like I said, that my tiebreaker is just based on longevity. So my number 4 is going to be Back to the Future 3.
It also is for me. Wow, we're on track. This might be. We'll see.
Will this be a first?
This might be a first. But my number 4 is also.
I will let you start this time and set the vibe.
Yeah, but Back to the Future 3, it's like, again, I really like this movie. Like, I don't have a whole lot of problems with it, and I've especially grown to love this movie more and more as I become more of a Western fan, as I become an adult.
Because, you've been talking about that a lot lately.
Yeah, how like the last 5 years, I've really gotten into Westerns, and especially, the Clint Eastwood sort of spaghetti Western stuff, which is the movie is kind of, throwing a lot of tributes at, with Marty wearing the, the stuff from like The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, and obviously being named Clint Eastwood, in the movie, and all the stuff, like literally like all the homages. But the fact that, Tom Wilson has said he modeled his Mad Dog Tannen, his like swagger and stuff after the man who shot Liberty Valance. It's like a John Wayne Western, and I think it's Robert Mitchum in that movie or something that kind of has that swagger. And so there's a lot of little touches that you can tell they're they cast the Henry, all the guys like in the bar that are laughing at him and stuff, like sitting around the table. That's like Harry Carey Jr. and something Guttram, like I forget the guy's name. He's like a character actor, but Pat Buttram or something, I think is his name. All those guys are like dudes that when you go back and watch these Westerns, they're like in the saloons all the time. Like these are character actors who have literally been in Westerns for like 40 years. Like they casted all these guys just to be all these extras. The guy who's the bartender was like in a million of those movies, like all this stuff. So you can tell they care about that material, and it's a lot of fun. And it has some really good sequences. I think the whole train sequence at the end is spectacular. Like from start to finish. Like it's practical. There's some good tension there. And
you knew going in at the end of Back to the Future 2 that they were going for this, so you can already tell the vision was there. So they definitely put the the heart and soul into it. You just get those vibes. I love that.
Yeah, and I like seeing seeing Doc, get a little relationship with Clara, with Mary
Mary
Steenburgen, and
Steenburgen, yeah.
she's fun. I like their relationship. And Marty's kind of caught in the middle, trying to keep him on track. And yeah, again, it's you either kind of go with the Western vibe or you don't. But I do, because I've grown to appreciate, and I liked it as a kid, but like I've grown to appreciate it more and more as I get into Westerns, and I see more of the little music cues and the sound cues and just the little things here and there, and just all the design of how they really like laid it out. Like it's really nice.
It's like one of those ones where like I don't have a good example right now, but like Hot Fuzz, where it's like it's not a parody of action movies,
No.
but it's based on all the action movies. So if the more action movies you've seen, the more you'll appreciate it. And
Mm-hmm.
similar to this, where it's like when you watch this, it's not a parody by any stretch of imaginations, but if you are familiarized with westerns and like knowing, like you said, the poncho and the man with no name like get up, if you actually familiarize that, that it's just cool homage. That's just like, wow, this is this is a fun time, and it just like I said, the respect and the love that they have of that. Yeah, and Marty and Doc, their relationship is always going to be great. It's one of those ones where they did a good job of filming these consecutively, pretty much. So it's like they didn't skip a beat. You know what I mean? It felt like very good, and it just having the vibe of what is it is great grandfather or what?
Yeah, great grandpa, like a William McFly or whatever is
Yeah.
like the baby. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then, and like you said, everything with the Biff, Tom Wilson's, variation of just being the grizzled old disgusting looking dude,
Just nasty
yeah,
and gross, and just there's flies
no,
always buzzing around his face, and you tell he doesn't bathe, and just like he hasn't even tried to clean his teeth in ages. Like it's just disgusting. But you can tell he's having a lot of fun with it, and Tom's talked about that. Like he was a big Western fan growing up, to getting to play like a gunslinger, he said was a big dream of his, and he had a lot of fun with it. And you can tell he's having a lot of fun with it playing, the variation. But the only thing I think is like super weird about the movie is Leah Thompson and Marty McFly like playing the couple, like the Irish couple. Like it's very strange. Like just because when you start to think about it, like biologically it doesn't really make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
It's just a little weird. Like I don't think that stuff was like super necessary in the movie, and you could have cut a lot of that and it really wouldn't have mattered overall. And I think you could have tightened up the movie just a tad. But yeah, like I still
like
appreciate
I get in theory why you do it, because you have that actress you want to pair, you want to bring in there, but it's still, like you said, biologically it's like all right.
I don't know about that. yeah.
What
So
are the odds?
but yeah,
What
but
is
all
Star Wars where everyone's with everyone? It's all the Skywalker family. Like, I don't know about all that.
Yeah, but I like the problem they have to solve of like they've got the car, but they just don't have any gas. Like it's just a simple problem. Like we're out of gas. You think like it's such a simple thing, but in 1885, ain't no gas around. Like so we gotta try to do what we gotta do. So it's very simple. But I love the wraparound stuff with the the flying train at the end and all that stuff, and how they end up having kids.
Like you said, the action sequence are a lot of fun. There's one bit in the background that's just from a famous thing from Screen Junkies. They mentioned it where like with the one kid.
Oh, he's like pointing at his crotch and stuff. Yeah, it's very
like,
weird.
Oh my god, shit like that where it's like it's just I don't know, little things like that where it's just I don't know, it's just one of those fun ones. So yeah, Back to the Future. It's a 4-star movie for me. Like it's solid.
Yeah, me
it's
too.
always been a 4-star movie. It's one of those where it's like I got technically no issues with it. It just doesn't have the magic of the other one. So that's all it's missing. You know what I mean? It's not like it lacks any magic. It's serviceable for what it's doing, but it's so good and it's like a consistent. It's essentially what we talked about with the Toy Story franchise, where it's like you can literally blend them all together as one, but they're so different in their own right, and they have their own distinct characteristics and just plot lines and character beats that just work. So yeah, that's a good time. So that's my number 6.
Yeah,
5, 7,
and my top 3s are all 5 stars. I love all these movies to pieces. So I mean, we'll
so for me, only my number 1 is 5 stars, and it's like a high 5-star, and the other 2 are not quite there, but I never, maybe one day, you know what I mean? It's just one of those where it's like I've just been separated a lot, or one of them I've only seen not soon enough. So my number 3, which one? I just want to make sure I get it right, because I don't want to screw this up, because I know they're close. Once again, I'm gonna go with the longevity, and the tiebreaker is gonna go to Back to the Future. So my number 3 is gonna be Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
We're still matching.
All
So
right.
we might have our first perfect match show
Yep.
here, tie show here.
So the
So
reason that
that'll make your wrap up much easier when you
you're
go to
not
do that
wrong. I
again.
don't have to do any math, my guy.
Yeah,
The reason that I kept
yeah.
this at 3 is I feel like of this and part 2 for Back to the Future, I feel like I would be more likely to flip this one on because there's just
Hmm.
a lot going on part 2. But just
Yeah.
the longevity of 2, it still has that magic, the continuation of 1. So it's just missing that. But yeah, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, like I said, the first time I watched it a couple years ago, I was just shocked of just like how much it held up in terms of like my expectations. Because I went in not having expectations, but if I were to, in theory, have expectation, it'd been like, oh, it's just some goofy hippie, stoner movie, and it's really not that. It's just two dudes that are. It's like you don't really want to call them dumb, but they are. But like they're not. It's hard to describe. They're kind of just simple
But they're
dudes. You know what I
also
mean?
like so sincere,
Yeah,
like
that's what
they're
I'm saying. Like,
sincere and they're it's more like an aloofness. They're aloof to certain things and they're into what they're into and they're not into what they're not, and I know people like that. We have all known people like that who are just
absolutely,
they're
dude.
not really like dumb per se. It's just they care
They're
about what they care
simplistic.
about. They don't,
Yeah.
yeah, and they're just very simple in what they want out of life or what their goals and their future is.
Yeah, and so just the basic plot line of like, hey, dude, we need to save the future, and like you said, George Carlin's character comes in here, and he's just like, hey, this is what we're doing, and this is kind of it. And then the one scene when they go back and then they see the future selves, and then
Oh yeah.
and from the other perspective, it's like little bits like that. That's a lot of cool. That's very cool. And then when they have to go and do the thing with the dad and all that stuff, like all
Right.
that stuff's a lot of fun, and it's just you go into a movie like this without, at least from my perspective, without that nostalgia or without that longevity of just like loving these characters and like instantly accepting and being hooked, that that's just the charisma and the charm. And,
Mhm.
it needs to be both good acting, good vibes, and actually good writing, and it is, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Mhm.
wild and bonkers. Like, you don't ever watch this movie and you're like, wow, that movie's got some fantastic writing, but in order for that movie to work, the writing has to be good. So I give it a lot of credit
Sometimes
for that.
it's so good that you don't notice it.
Exactly. I mean, that's what they say about
Because bad writing would stick out, but good writing you almost don't notice it because it just
exactly.
flows. So
Exactly.
it's one of those
I mean, that's
things.
what they say a lot about comedy too, where it's like
Mhm,
they act like comedy movies aren't like good writing, but like they need to be funny. You know what I mean? You still have to
mhm.
write the jokes and the vibes, and like that's what this is. Like there's jokes and it's funny and it's the antics of it. It holds up like visually, like it doesn't look like it's not groundbreaking by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not saying it's like
No.
T2, but like for this movie to be sci-fi technically, it like
Mhm,
nothing about it stands out and like looks crazy goofy and weird. Like, you know what I mean? It's a
mhm.
good time, dude. Like, this is going to be in rotation. I'm glad I finally rewatched it. And I'm not like, I don't know, because I it's one of those movies where I don't have the nostalgia for it, so I'm not confident that it's a 5 star. But like, if I watch this a couple times a year for the next 10
Mhm.
years, like it could go up there. But if not, I am confident saying 4 star movie. Highly recommend. Give it a chance. Step outside your box if you think you won't like it. And yeah, so what are your thoughts on it, and how long have
Yeah.
you been a fan of this? I feel like that's a good
No, no,
question
I
too.
and again, I can't pinpoint the first time I saw it, but I remember this movie used to come on like Comedy Central or cable all the time, like back in the '90s.
Yeah, I
So
don't remember.
yeah, I used to see it on cable a lot, and I didn't really own it until I owned it on DVD later, probably like 2002, 2003, something like that. But I saw this movie a lot on cable, and it's one of those movies that I could pop in at any time on cable and just roll with the rest of it. Like I could pop in when they're at the gas station, when they first meet Rufus, or I could pop in when they're meeting Socrates, and go from there. I could even pop in when they're at the mall and like go to the climax. Like
Yep.
anytime I could just like pop in on this movie and just watch the rest of it. But yeah, it's got a fantastic pace. It's a very simple premise. Like we're traveling through time just to pass an exam. It's like not
Yeah.
even world stakes necessarily, but you kind of find out that there sort of is world stakes. As far as the future of like these two being together and forming this band. But they don't know that they're just trying to pass their little history.
And like you said,
History test.
that's good for the trilogy as a whole, where it blends
Sure, they can come
without
back
knowing
around
them
to
really.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, they can come back around to it later. But everybody plays their parts perfectly. Like the chemistry of Bill and Ted is just some of the best, like buddy duos ever. And George Carlin just is so level headed, and all of his delivery of his exposition. He's got this exposition to deliver, but then he throws in the jokes every now and then. Like and the way he's so suave and kind of cool about it, and just laying everything out. It's a lot of fun. He's not like panicking, like, guys, this is what you have to do. You got to do this. He's just like, enjoy yourselves, boys. Have a good time. I'll check
Yep.
in with you later. Like that sort of delivery.
But I mean,
Like
think about it.
that's
That's how
all fun.
time works. Like you have time. I mean, you have your time traveling. So as long as you get it done right, because you have to have a level head, or else do it right, or else you got to
Yeah,
keep going back and keep fixing it. Which obviously we see that in Back to the Future later on, where it's
sure.
like if you're rushing, then you need to like go back and fix a mistake. So yeah, like I said, that's part of the writing, and that's good stuff, and that's
Mhm.
very overlooked.
Yeah, and when they're picking up all the different characters, we spend a little more time with ones than others. We spend a little more time with Billy the Kid and like Socrates than some of the other ones. Some of the ones like Al Leong, as Genghis Khan, they just kind of get in and get out, just grab them and keep going. But then we get to see the characters in the real world. Like that whole mall sequence is just so much fun. When they're all just roaming around the mall and Beethoven's like playing the keyboards and just rocking out. Like Genghis Khan gets like a football helmet and a baseball bat. It's just like wrecking shop, just totally just going wild. All that stuff is super fun. And the climax where they bring it all together, doing the presentation and just how they're able to use all the different personalities to do the showcase is a lot of fun. I love Bernie Casey,
Yeah.
the guy who plays the teacher. Like I've loved him from Revenge of the Nerds. It's like one of my favorite comedies. So and he kind of plays a similar role in both movies. But yeah, just really, really entertaining. It's just a really, really entertaining movie from start to finish. We jump in, we get in, we do what we got to do, we get out, and great personalities, some good quotes, and honestly, yeah, like you said, the movie still looks good. Some of the production stuff is still good. Yeah, it's not anything that's gonna knock your socks off, but everybody plays their part perfectly well, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, if for some reason you haven't watched this because of
Oh
you're
yeah,
just kind of standoffish, give it a shot and at least formulate your own opinion and be shocked.
yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy I did that. So that is the end of Bill and Ted's. Now we're going into Back to the Futures 1 and 2. We'll see the order, and I will start. My number 2 is Back to the Future Part 2.
Yeah, me too. Of
Yeah,
course it is.
of course it is.
Yeah, of course it is. Come on.
All right.
The original one's like a top 10 of all time. Like,
Yeah,
come
and
on. No, and don't get me wrong. I have the second one in my top 64. Like I love this movie to pieces as well. And I've grown to love it even more and more over the years. Just how bonkers this movie is, dude. I just love how wild and crazy and fun. This might be the one when we're just talking Back to the Future with people, like it almost seems like we gravitate to the scenes of the second one more than the original one just because of how crazy they are. But I think this movie is just so
and
wild.
obviously the time frame
Yeah.
of the whole 2015 thing, just being around
Hmm.
that time, people like talk about that.
Oh
Me
yeah.
being a Cubs fan, the whole Cubs thing. You have the
Mhm.
Jaws, stuff. All those bits of just like what is the future like? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. But yeah, this movie, like I said, it continues that magic of the first one that just
Hmm.
goes, and the stakes are different. You have Biff's thing with the fudging with time and the sports almanac and stuff like that, and just like being greedy, and then him dealing with his own stuff. He's like, hey butthead, what did I tell you? It's just how they're able
Yeah.
to like go back and forth, and like you said, Tom Wilson just does a good job of like embodying all versions of Biff, or
Hmm.
whatever version of his family you want to call
And
him.
I think if you count him up, he plays like 6 different versions throughout the whole
Yeah.
trilogy because you have like 50s Biff, and then you have this quote unquote good Biff from like 85, the guy who like waxes the cars, and then you've got like bad boss Biff from the original part of the
Yep.
movie. You've got Griff, from the future. You got old man Biff, from the future. You've got Mad Dog 10. You've got alternate 1985, Donald Trump, Biff.
Yeah.
Like, you got all this stuff. Like, it's just, he's got range, man. That guy doesn't get sometimes enough credit for what he brings to the series, man. He's
Yeah,
really,
because
really
they
good.
just think of him as just a dumb jock bully, but it's like, yeah,
He's
he
not,
does
no.
different variations of that. And speaking of the Trump building, that the whole sequence, like on the top with like
Mhm.
the lightning and just the framing and the darkness, how it stands out.
Yeah.
It's really well shot, and like you forget, like Zemeckis did a good job, like with what he's doing. Like he's a good director, you know what I mean. And
Hmm.
people take for granted, just like because they think when they think of Back to the Future, they think of Marty and Doc, and just the
Hmm.
DeLorean and stuff like that. But like there's elements of this movie that whether it's emotional stuff, comedic beats, like that are just well directed. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah,
Well,
like I
even the
said, I
part
don't.
where he sees the tombstone of George, and he's just like, "Oh, please, God, no!" And the wind's blowing, like, and it's like this, realization of like it really hits him, that he's in a bad spot, like all that stuff's well directed and like well set up, like you just appreciate it on a technical level.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where this movie, like, obviously number one's number one, but like this is one where it's like I don't know. I can't quite put it the 5-star range just because I don't go back and revisit it. You know what I mean? It's one of those ones where I have vivid memories of it and I can talk about it. And like if I do go and watch it, I have zero complaints. It's just one of those where I don't go back enough. And like I can literally just turn on the first one and just fall asleep in the first 5 minutes of like him listening to the music and doing all that stuff. Like this one, like this I don't know, this one's like they're both adventures. I'm not acting like that, but like this one from the rip, it's an adventure, whereas the first one kind of like leads into it, so you can kind of like fall into the world, and this one's like an adventure, immediately because it's like a direct follow up. You know what I mean? With the going in the future, so it's a fun time. Like I said, they don't skip a beat with the dynamic of Doc and Marty, and with oh my god, what's the girl's character? I'm just forgetting right now. That's
with Jennifer, yeah. Well,
yeah.
and the recasted Elizabeth Shue Jennifer, yeah.
And like how they're able to like bring her in, and like it's just a fun time, dude. Like anyone who says that this was their favorite, I don't know if I always believe them, but I don't like judge them for it at the same time. I feel like maybe you're trying to be different, or maybe you just have the nostalgia for like seeing it before. But like I don't judge them. I'm like, that's fine though. You know what I mean? Like it's one of those ones, like in my mind, one is one, but I have no issues really like, talking about it. And just like you said, it's in your 64, and I'm not like, wow, really? That's weird. I'm like, yeah, cool.
No, this movie's just like, I think it's just a blast, like from start to finish. I mean, we jump right into the pick up right from the back one, the end of the first one. We're jumping into the future. All the future stuff is like super fun, with all the flying cars and the chase sequence and everything, like with seeing the house and like all that. It's great. And then we think we've done the mission. We're back in, and now we're in the alternate 1985, which is like probably my favorite sequence of the whole movie, when they're just kind of discovering everything, and he's running around. You see Strickland with like shooting at gang members and stuff, like it's nuts. And then the whole biker like casino hotel and like the Biff Tannen museum, you're just like, what the hell is going on? Like this is amazing. But like all this stuff is fantastic. Him as alternate Biff is great, and you got Leah Thompson with like the fake implants and stuff. It's just so over the top and nutty. Again, this movie's just bonkers, like, and how it just keeps escalating. And then you go back to 55, and you got this movie within a movie where we're like recreating some of these scenes from the original one from like these alternate angles, but we're also seeing stuff from that day that we didn't see in the original movie. Like all that sequence where Biff is getting his car like cleaned up, and all that. And that's when the other Biff. Yeah, and the other Biff, confronts him and all that stuff. Like you get to see some other angles, and him trying to do this Mission Impossible thing while taking out the guys without messing with the original timeline. Like all that stuff is just super fun, and super entertaining. And I think it also just has one of the best. Like the first time you see it, I think it's one of the best cliffhangers for a movie like ever. Like when Doc disappears after the lightning strike, and then right afterwards this car pulls up, and you're just like, what the hell is going on? Like, and the guy in a suit like gets out, and he's got this like umbrella, and you're like, is this like a hitman or something? Is somebody like trying to just clean up the timeline, just kill Doc and Marty? And he's like, I got a letter for you from like 1885. You're like, what? Like that's insane. He's like, I get it back to the future, and boom, we're right back at the end of the first movie. He disappears, Marty comes running around the corner, and oh my god, I just sent you in the future. Like it's a great like 10 minutes of film. Like I think it's just awesome.
Yeah.
And the way it shoots you, and that's why every time I watch it and go back to it, like I have to go watch the third one right after that. Like I just have to. I got to put it on. Yeah. If I got time, I'm putting on the third one right after that, because it just grabs you right in there. So really super solidly just entertaining movie from start to finish, and I like it more and more every time I see it. Like,
absolutely, it's really good time at the movies. But with that said, number one is number one, Back to the Future. This is a movie that, like I said, it sets up the character of Marty of just wanting to be a kid, dude. Like just wanting to be, he wants to play music. He wants to be with his girl. His dad's doing his stuff of, getting bullied as a grown man. He's like, oh, do my report. Oh yeah, if I fill out your report with your writing, and then later on they play that with the homework thing, and that's just a fun thing where it's like that just doesn't change.
Don't
like,
bring it over tomorrow. I sleep in Saturdays.
Yeah. He's like, all you have is light beer. Oh my god, like little things like that.
No, I spilled beer all over my suit. Who's gonna clean this up when I got in that wreck? Like,
I didn't know anything about a blind spot.
Well, yeah, you don't catch that when you're a kid, but when you're an adult, you're like, he was fucking drunk driving. Like, what the fuck? Like, you don't like. I didn't get that as a kid, but like, you go back and watch it as an adult, you're like, oh, he was drunk and he got in a stupid wreck and wrecked his car, and now he wants to pay for it. One of my favorite
lines is when he like gives him a nook. He's like, oh, I gotta change the oil there. And it's like just so dumb. And then everything, everything with his mom just being a drunk, and yeah, it's just, and then the whole the jailbird Joey thing of like, oh yeah, he's out, he's in again. But then, like I said, going in there to the school, being a kid, playing his band, Strickland, is just like, oh, you'll never be anything, just like your father. And then so that when they go to the future, and or even when it opens up, I love the opening with just all the clocks and him trying to play the music.
Dude, how much exposition is spouted without one piece of dialogue? And it's like it's a similar sequence in Roger Rabbit when they pan around Eddie Valiant's desk. He's looking at the picture. Like, Zemeckis is a master of conveying exposition with zero dialogue, and that whole scene sets up so many things in the movie if you're paying attention. Like, again, all the clocks being in sync just shows how kind of OCD Doc is, like, and the things he messes with. You got the news report about the plutonium being stolen. You've got the fact that the dog food's overflowing, so nobody's been there in a while. The place is kind of a mess. You see the plutonium box under there, so Doc has the plutonium. Like, there's so many little pieces of things that you can see. Like, you see Doc getting an award, or you see like different diplomas, and there's so much information conveyed just in that one sequence if you're paying attention.
Exactly.
With everything.
So then when he's talking to him, and then he's like, oh, hey, come meet me at 1 o'clock, right? That's the time.
1:15 a.m.
Yeah. And then when he calls him, he's like, oh yeah, I'm up. He's not up. And he's like, and then he rides over there, and it just jumps right into it. He's like, wait, wait. And then that's the line where he's like, you're gonna see some serious shit, right?
You're going to see some, like, when this baby hits 88 miles an hour, you're going to see some serious shit.
And like, at the time, like, you don't know what's going to happen. You know what I mean? It really sets up, like, it feels a little tense, and you're like, all right, let's go. And then obviously when the Libyans come, they shoot up. And then obviously when it plays later in the movie, and he still thinks he died. And then he's like, some troops are just, willing to change. You just got the vest on or whatever. And but then when you go into the past, and you're just dealing everything just of how he changes times, I realized that saving his dad for being a peeping Tom, and now he's taking his place. Talking to the mayor, dealing with Biff as a bully, throughout the stuff of like kind of taking his place of his dad being bullied, and like learning how to stand up for yourself. And it's just one of those where it's a good life lesson that you don't even realize about stand up to bullies. Coming within yourself. No, I don't like saying that at all. But like, coming in your own, I don't like saying any of that. But anyway, growing as a
coming of age drama.
Exactly.
I don't like that coming of age term either. I'm not a big fan of that term. You're just learning life lessons, whatever.
And then just the juxtaposition of just like, if he doesn't grow up now, he's just going to be like his father. And that's just kind of like, we all deal with that. That's just life. And then, obviously everyone talks about the awkward stuff, like with the mom, but it's like, think about it. If your mom is attracted to your dad and you're a spawn of your dad, your mom is inherently going to be attracted to you and just not realize it. But then once the physicalness happens, like, oh, it's like kissing my brother, because it's physical. It's the emotion, the look is there, but you don't know why. And then you realize like, oh no, it's one of those where it's like, I'm okay with that. That's biology. And obviously the whole creepy thing with Biff, he's like, yo, go into another car, get out. It's some raping in, like, oh my god, like, it's dark, dude. It's like, I mean, you have the Tom stuff, you have Biff essentially being a rapist, drunk driving. Like, there's a lot of things that they do in this movie that like you don't realize. Like, it's brutal. And then obviously everything with the band stuff, you finally have Marty like going in like, all right, let's shred. So this movie's just a blast, dude. And still under 2 hours, like, it just goes, dude. This movie's a banger.
No, and the fact that some of the acts just each almost have like their own genre, because it starts out as this, like you said, sort of a coming of age, just sort of a high school movie, high school family drama sort of thing, just an exploration of his character. It then, at the mall turns into this crazy sci-fi movie where all of a sudden there's time traveling and he's all over the place. And then it becomes like a rom-com for a little while with like, Marty trying to teach his dad like how to pick up the girl, and
crazy stupid love.
It's just like, him coaching, and trying to influence this thing, and it's not working, and there's misunderstandings and all kinds of stuff. But it almost becomes like just a rom-com, little section of the movie. And then we get some thriller stuff at the end, and then a full-blown action sequence, with the clock tower at the end. So the way it's able to kind of move through those genres and still
the use of the sound design all in that, with the lightning and the thunder and then just the rain, and like obviously the score, like we'll talk about the score, just it's dynamic, dude. Alan
Silvestri, yeah.
He slaps with that score, like it just stands out when you hear that.
I saw this movie, one of the repertory screens I saw. I got to see this with a live orchestra, and it was really cool. I saw it at like a concert hall, like one of those like indoor concert hall places, and they would play the movie, and then they would just play the movie, and then when there was the big orchestral sequences, like they had a live orchestra on stage that would play along with the movie, and it was pretty awesome. Like it's great, and it makes you appreciate even just the little cues, you know. But yeah, even the you know, like just like the little just subtle musical notes. But yeah, like I said, the sound design of even like the car engine shutting off and then clicking on, and like there's just little things in that sequence that are just so great. And there's all that tension of not only got to make it on time, but Doc rips up his letter and he's freaking out about that. You know, there's all kinds of like different dynamics going on in that whole sequence.
He's starting to slowly just fade away into existence.
Oh man, the fade away stuff is tense, man. Like you're like, oh my god, like he's gonna fade away, and yeah, all that stuff is a lot of fun, and him rocking out, and like, you know,
it's a great excuse to do. Like,
for that.
You know, they you know, it's because they're in the 50s, like you deal with the racism, so they fight with the black guy, and you know, getting all that stuff. The one hand is all damaged up from the trunk, and it's like, all right, you know, we need something to play, so he goes to do it, and he's like, I need to get them to kiss, so he's like. Dealing with the genres of the music, but still like, you know, figuring out like how he's going to grow and all that stuff, and it's just a good time. Enchantment Under the Sea dance. What did she initially say? Something under the fish.
He's like, and I took him to the fish under the sea dance.
No, it's the enchantment
under the sea dance.
Like I said, this movie's just one of those where it's like there's few movies out there where it's like it's the cliche pick, but it's like for a reason. Like, and this is the perfect example, like where it's just like it's so many genres. It's short. It's watchable. It's
great setups, great payoffs in the script. You know what I mean? Great callbacks. There's just everything comes full circle in the movie, just perfectly. Great reveals. Like we see him get shot, but it's like also the Lone Pine Mall if you catch instead of the Twin Pine Mall because the one guy ran over. You know, when he sped out of the farm or whatever. Like, and then you know you get the big great reveal of him with the taped up letter, and he put the vest on, like, and he was just like, I figure what the hell, you know, who cares, you know, so whatever. And like it's good stuff. And then you get a great tease that necessarily at the time they didn't plan for a sequel, but you know, you had a perfect setup for a sequel. He comes back, he's all futuristic, the car flies away. Like, what a great like little tease that even if we hadn't got a sequel, it'd just be a great movie anyways.
Where we're going, we don't need
roads. Yeah, like what a great tease for even if they didn't do it.
That's ambiguous enough where it could be just like, you know, going in where it's like, all right, don't worry, there's more, but like this story is over. So even if it didn't,
no, it's still a complete movie. He fixed it. He's got a new life. He's got his girl. You know, his parents are confident now. You know, and the siblings have changed, and he's living a good life. And yeah, if it had ended right there, you still know Doc is trying to do crazy time travel stuff. But if it had ended right there, and you just see them taking off, like it would have been
sleep over it.
It still would have been. It still would have been one of the greatest movies of all time. Period.
Exactly.
Like, even if
it does a good job of like having that morality of like I said, like building that confidence. Like it literally changed Marty's parents' lives to where now they're successful. His brother is wearing a suit instead of going to a burger joint, fast food joint. You know what I mean? It just does a good job of just like confidence is key with this movie. Like you need to be confident with the girl. You need to be confident playing a band. You need to be confident standing up to bullies. You're like it's a great like this is. People don't really consider this a coming of age movie. They think of it as like an action sci-fi, but like this is one of the best coming of age movies in terms of like if you watch this at a teenage age, it's going to change your life because it teaches you things that you just don't realize. That's fantastic. It holds up. You can watch it as a teenager, as a kid, as a grown man coming out of college. Like you can watch it at any point and it could become one of your favorite movies. Like it holds up. It stands the test of time. And yeah, it's like I said, there's very few movies that genuinely are like literally worth the praise. And this is top 5 of like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like totally. Well, and like you say, sometimes it's almost been talked about so much that it's almost overrated, but it's not. You know, like because
it's overrated in terms of conversation, but not in terms of facts.
But then you go and I go to a theater and I watch it again. You know what I mean? Like on a big screen, and I'm like, no, this movie's not overrated. It's
like, as goofy as it sounds. Like when every time with The Godfather or The Dark Knight or Shawshank, when movies are like it's been talked to death of being this, and then when you finally go watch, you're like, all right, I'm gonna nitpick this, and you're like, Fuck, dude, I
I can't, dude. I told
man.
I told when me and Jacob Barber were talking about The God, like I watched The Godfather for whatever reason because of different shows and stuff, like 4 times in 6 months. You know what I mean? Which is a lot for that movie. It's a long movie. It's a lot to take in.
That's a week.
But every time I was just like, this is the greatest movie ever. Like this is like, this is so perfect, and I just appreciate it more because I was like listening to podcasts and stuff. And every time you sit down and watch this movie, yeah, it's like it's one you can put on in the background if you want to and just enjoy it from a breezy entertainment aspect. You can sit down and try to nitpick it, and you're like, everything in this movie is like damn near perfect. Like it's all perfect.
Like I said, even the tying together, like you have, her little brother, her becoming a drunk because she talks about like when her mom drinks and then she
and the kids in the playpen behind the bars and he never wants to get out, like, and there's Uncle Joey. Like you have them playing the same. You have them playing the same Honeymooners episode, and like the rerun thing, like all that stuff is fun. Who the hell is John F. Kennedy? Like
Reagan, the actor?
Yeah, the actor. And there's a Ronald Reagan movie playing at the theater that he walks by. Yep. You know what I mean? Like literally, like it even sets that up. Like you see Ronald Reagan on the
tower of like the red or not the Deus Ex Machina. Like, okay, it's the clock tower. Like, no, they've been setting that up the whole time of like this is that time in the day. Save the tower because of what happened this day. So when you go back, obviously that's what happened when Doc did it. Like it just makes sense. It's like. So, there's a lot of things in this movie that are so simple, but simple is great, and there's a lot of things that are complicated, but the complicated is like good. You know what I mean? Like it's just this movie's awesome, dude. I'm happy. This is really the first time I've ever got to talk about this in depth and like express like
we could do a whole hour just on this movie and just talk about all the pieces of this movie and break it down like scene by scene and just talk about how like the little things that are great about it. Like we didn't even talk about the fact that he's going around the courtyard area in front of the school and like all the things that change from the 50s to the 80s, like all the things you notice, like the little theater in the background and the auto parts store and the gas station and like all that stuff. Like when you go back and watch it multiple times and you see all the different things.
When he creates the skateboard because he steals
it's all fun. Like Statler Toyotas in all 3 movies, like it's just these little things that they took care of, like you can tell they cared about detail, detail.
When he goes into the diner, he's like, oh, let me get a tab. He's like, you gotta buy something to get a tab. He's like, all right, let me get a Pepsi free. Pepsi free, you gotta pay for it.
You gotta pay for it. What great dialogue! Like just amazing dialogue. Like what'd you do? Jump ship because he's wearing a vest? Like
that's how you expose the fact that like it's a different time and people are gonna like react to it, but still tell jokes. Like it's just it's tight, dude. This movie. I honestly, one of these days, if we ever branch away from like creating our own list, like I would love to do like a 5 and 5 of like 5 overrated movies that aren't overrated and 5 overrated movies that are, and this would be the overrated movies that are not.
Well, and it would just be all the movies that come up on tournament fights all the time that we talk about. But it's like, Get Back to the Future, Godfather, Jurassic Park, all this stuff. But like, but then you sit down and watch them, and you're like, no, this movie. It is what it is. It is one of the greatest things. Like you said, we talked about that a lot with Pulp Fiction, and it's like, no, it is. Like it is that good, and it still has the influence.
Here's a great example of why this movie holds up and works. Think about this community. You have 16-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds. People love this movie all throughout that.
All ages.
This is the type of movie where it's like, oh, it shouldn't hold up because they should be saying dialogue, words that they were okay in the 80s, but they're not okay today. Like I talked about the Bill and Ted, but like they don't have any of that. The way it's shot, like it looks good. You know what I mean? Like obviously in terms of like things within the screen are like you can tell it's older, but in terms of like the quality of the filmmaking, it looks good. Like they have 4Ks of it for a reason. You know what I mean? Like it's a movie that just stands the test of time. And like when you go back and forth in time, like that's why I love period pieces because they can hold up as time goes by.
Well, that's why Godfather holds up because it's a 40s period piece. Exactly. It's not even a 70s movie, so it feels timeless when you go back to it. It's a pinch of time. And even this movie, when they're doing all the time jumping, but it's still like mostly the 80s and the 50s, which feel timeless when you go back and watch it. Because look, there's the 80s, look, there's the 50s. Like it just does. It feels timeless, like where it doesn't feel outdated. It just feels like that's what life was like, then. The only thing that you can nitpick is like the future stuff, but at the same time, any movie that has the future is going to get outdated at some point because we're going to hit that year. Like every movie does that. So like it is what it is.
That doesn't mean it's outdated. It just means it was different.
It just means it was different and not correct. I mean, yes, we all want our flying cars,
but
science fiction.
It's not called science. Here's what's going to happen. So Back to the Future is a banger. I'm glad we got to talk about it. I'm happy. So
Yeah.
that is our list. This is a first
It's
time.
easy. It's easy. You don't have to change
literally
anything.
have the exact same. So our number 6 of Back to the Future versus Bill and Ted is Bill and Ted.
And we did not talk about this beforehand. Like, we never share our list with each other. We never know what we're going to come in with, which is what makes the show fun. We just reveal it throughout the show. And yeah, this is the first. Like, we've had ones that were close, like where we had the same like top and bottom, but like we mixed a little in the middle. We've had a few of those, but yeah, this is the first one where we're literally start to finish. We've had the exact same one.
Yeah. So our number 6 is Bill and Ted Face the Music. Our number 5 is Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Or no. Yeah, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. Our number 4 is Back to the Future Part 3. Our number 3 is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. Our number 2 is Back to the Future Part 2. And our number 1 is Back to the Future. So you said this movie is a top 10 movie for you?
Oh yeah, it's like number 6 or something like that. Yeah, easy.
Honestly, after this conversation, I'm confident I'm gonna bump it up. I don't know exactly where. I'm gonna think about it, but it's gonna go up just because I finally feel comfortable. Like it's all right. I'm gonna look right now. Right now it's at 38, and I feel like that's too low. Like it's gonna go up. And it's one of those where, and that was at 38 without even talking about it. That was how much confidence I had going into this. So what did we decide we're going to talk about for our next couple weeks?
So yeah, the next things we've got on the docket in the immediate future, we talked about the Thor mix-up we had, but that's okay because we're going to do it next week. We're going to do, Thor: Love and Thunder comes out this week. I'm seeing it tomorrow. As of this recording, I'm seeing it tomorrow at 4:00 in the afternoon. So yeah,
I could see it at 3:00 my time, which is 4 EST. But and if I want to watch an IMAX 3D, then I'll see that one. But if I want to wait until the regular IMAX, then I'll wait until 10 EST. So I might even do both.
Hey, and can I say thank you to these companies that are doing these like super early Thursday like shows at like 3-4 o'clock? Like I like that because I can get out of this movie and get home and it's still like light outside. I love it. So I'm
don't have to wait until midnight. Like back.
I know. When me and my buddy in Florida used to have to go to these midnight shows or 11 o'clock shows, like to see the movie the night before, and it was just like, yeah, we get out at 2 a.m. Like, yeah, no. Like I miss it, but I don't miss it if it makes sense. You know what I mean? Like I don't miss getting out at 2 a.m.
If you didn't go through it, you don't understand. But that's good nostalgia. We're like, that was cool. Don't want to do it again, but that was cool.
But I'm 36 years old now, man. I can't be staying out till 3 a.m. no more. I'm old. So yeah, Taika Waititi. So we're going to be doing the actual filmography. So that will include Thor: Love and Thunder and Thor: Ragnarok, amongst all the other stuff like Jojo Rabbit and What We Do in the Shadows. And I just watched Eagle vs. Shark today, so I'm starting my Taika journey on some of his earlier stuff. So I'll be watching those. And then we're going to do another big mega verses that we'll build up to. And this is going to be a lot of fun. This was like my idea originally, like one of the ones I thought it.
You kind of jump started the verses with this.
Yeah. So, and because we knew we wanted to do Terminator because obviously that's a big franchise. There's 6 movies, but we were like, but let's just not do Terminator. Let's do all these crossovers. What's another like cyborg? RoboCop. So let's do Terminator versus RoboCop. So it's 10 movies all together. If you include the RoboCop trilogy and the remake, the 6 Terminator movies. So yeah, 10 movies all thrown in. And I love the first 2 Terminators, but I've said this: you throw that original RoboCop in there, man. Who knows? I love that movie to pieces.
It's like what we did with Alien vs. Predator. It's like Alien, but Predator.
Predator's damn good.
Too, you know what I mean? Yeah,
it's good. So we'll see where those sequels stack up, and I know you've got some first-time watches for
a lot of first-time actually. So it's going to be a very heavy. Yeah,
so I'll be the more expert on that one because I've seen all these movies. Like I'm just going to rewatch a few specific ones, but I'm the big fan of that. So that'll be a lot of fun. And then we're going to tie into another new release. Jordan Peele's Nope is coming out at the end of the month, and we're all very excited about that. Another Jordan Peele horror movie. But we're going to do a 3-way face-off for that one because we're going to take 3 guys that have dabbled into horror but have very small filmographies.
The new quote-unquote auteurs of horror now.
Yeah, so we got Robert Eggers, who just had The Northman as well, but has done The Lighthouse and The Witch was very acclaimed, when that came out. And then we have Ari Aster, who's one of the up-and-coming guys who's getting a lot of attention with Hereditary and Midsommar. So we're going to throw all, including Nope, all 8 of those movies into a big 3-way battle and see who comes out on top. So that should be interesting. And then I'll stop after this one, but the 2 after that tie into each other. So, Henry wants to do Transformers, and I get it. I'm not terribly excited about it, but he watched them all for some geek stuff recently, so they're fresh on his brain. So, but what we're going to do to build up to that is we're going to do all the non-Transformers Michael Bay stuff first. So his non-Transformers Michael Bay filmography. So anything that's not that, your Armageddons, your Rocks, your Pain and Gains, all that stuff thrown into one, and then we will build up to the week after that. We will cover all the Transformers franchise, but that includes two that aren't his. Bumblebee and that original animated.
Yep.
Yeah, so a couple of extra ones. I've got them all in 4K because I knew this was coming, so I will watch them. But I need some time to kind of build up. Those are some long ass movies, so we'll get there eventually. But we got some other stuff we've already planned out. We'll get to that in time. So that's just in the immediate future.
There you go. So that was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure trilogy. Well, just Bill and Ted trilogy versus the Back to the Future trilogy. That's a lot of fun. So just to recap once again, we had Bill and Ted Face the Music, Bill and Ted Bogus Journey, Back to the Future Part 3, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, Back to the Future Part 2, and Back to the Future Part 1. So if you clicked on this video because you just saw these names and you're interested in just the rest of the content we do, obviously we just talked about the upcoming schedule, but we also have other stuff on the channel. Go ahead and check that stuff out. But also on Mondays, I have a horror podcast with John Marr. There will be horror. We talk about preferably a new release and then a niche thing. So we give a recommendation, some random, and then something popular. Most recently, we did The Mist, Annihilation, and Monsters from Gareth Edwards. Kind of some, in the dark, ambiguous monster movies. That was a lot of fun. And then also on this channel, we have movie trivia, which right now is really, really popular. And it's really, you're going to want to check that out because of the demand of that's going to go up. So we have a singles and a teams league that both me and Austin here are involved in both of those. And then obviously check out everything Austin's doing over on Movie Hero Network with tournament fights, tier ranker fights, podcasts about movies,
and the Lonely Marks podcast, which is a wrestling podcast if you like wrestling too. So yeah, all kinds of stuff going on.
That's why I love talking about this type of stuff. We're able to encompass a lot, and we're able to be professionals at a lot, and we know what we're talking about, so it's a lot of fun. So like I said, if you made this far in the video, drop your like, drop your ranking below, because obviously the average person's probably gonna have Back to the Future 1, but I'm curious to see where the rest lies. And if you don't have Back to the Future 1, I'm definitely curious to see where it ranks and what's higher. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. So like I said, subscribe to the channel, put the post notifications on, because we always go live on, well, not always, 95% of the time we go live on Wednesdays, but we never know exactly what time we're gonna, because whether it's work or other scheduling for shows and stuff. So with that said, my name's Henry Confidential. That is Austin Pez Howell. Make sure you show up every week, because this is where we show up and rank stuff.